Hey there, it's Dr. Steve, and today we are going to be breaking down, talking about how to help a teenager with anxiety. So look forward to presenting this to you. We'll see you in a bit. All right, so I just met with a young lad the other day, and I want to just kind of show you step by step how we began the process of working with him, explaining to him what was going on, and then also the beginnings exercise that we gave him to help him move forward in his healing. So first, we obviously took a history. And he was just describing about just nausea and just like kind of common anxiety type of things. There was some pain involved and things, but essentially it was like this kind of like vague, low-grade anxiety that he was describing. And so now within that little piece of information about him kind of revealing about his anxiety, there's one key phrase which we're going to teach later in this video, but one key phrase was, I said, well, what's your biggest concern? Like, what's the most important thing that I need to know that's concerning you right now? And he said, well, I just don't know if it's ever going to end. I don't know if it's ever going to stop or go away. And I said, okay, perfect. So what I want you to do is just remember that little phrase, because we're going to come back to that later in the exercise portion. So what I said was, okay, so we can kind of help you out and let's deal with this. So I said, okay, well, you're a smart kid. He's 14 years old. So I said, okay, so here's what we're kind of looking at when it comes to stress, is that you have a 14-year-old brain now and it's developing. And his mom was actually sitting next to him. And I said, okay, so when you were younger, like 4, 5, 6, and 7, you didn't really have much of a developed mind at that point because you relied on your mom to take care of you and she protected you. And I said, but now that you're 14, your mind is developing at a different pace and it thinks different. And I said, you know, if you were to go out in the wild and have to fend for yourself, this mind has to be the protector for you now. It has to be able to look at the environment and see if there's any threats to make sure that you stay alive. You didn't have to do that when you were 6, 7, or 8. You relied on your mom for protection and survival, but now your mind's developing to make sure that anything around you is not a threat to your life. And so I mentioned to him, I said, because you have a different mind that's going on, it's going to look at these symptoms that you're having and it's going to decide and try to figure out, is this a threat to your life or not? Because that's part of its role and part of its job is to help to protect you and protect your life. So I said, we need to just realize that part of this kind of like critical thinking part of you, or this concerned part of you, or this worried part of you is really that part of the mind that is designed to protect you, to keep you safe, and to keep you alive. And now you don't have to rely on your mom to do that anymore. You are actually building the capacity to do that on your own. So I said, just so you know this. So this is kind of like a basic neurological setup. We have the brain and the spinal cord, and we have the cerebellum and brainstem, and we have the amygdala, which is your stress and anxiety center. We also have your frontal lobe for higher thinking, cortical thinking, conscious thinking. And so I said, so here's kind of what happens is you have an experience in your body. And now, at the age of 14, the job of the mind at the beginning is to assess the body to see, is there anything that's of danger that I need to be scared of, or that I need to be worried about, or that could be a threat to my life. So now your mind is going off in these new tangents, and because you're getting older. And so I said, so what happens reflexively is the body wants to ensure that it's safe and that these symptoms will go away so your life won't be threatened. But when they don't go away right away, your mind starts to get concerned, and we call that the suffering mind. The mind that just wants things to end and doesn't know when it's going to end. And so what that does, though, is because it doesn't feel safe in the experience yet, maybe it doesn't know exactly what's going on, or it hasn't figured everything out yet, and because it doesn't feel safe, it's going to actually create reflexive tension in the system and keep tightening some of the digestion, some of your breathing capacities, and kind of keep that cycle going between suffering, not knowing when it's going to end, firing up that protective mind, reflecting that into the body, keeping the body tight, pushing energy to the stress and anxiety centers of the amygdala, and then keep this little vicious loop going. And that's oftentimes enough. That loop in and of itself is enough to create some chronic symptoms like back pain that doesn't go away or nausea that doesn't seem to subside and things of that nature. And so I just described this to him and I said, so part of our job together is going to be to help to bring ease to this tight reflexive centers that have been going on. So we're going to bring ease to that. We're going to teach you how to breathe, and we're going to teach you how to move again a little bit differently. Part of his spine was a little curved and shoulder was up on one side pretty tight. And so we could see how he was embodying some of this postural tension as well. So we're going to teach you how to unwind these tensions, these reflexive tensions. And then we're also going to give you an exercise that's going to help to push a lot of this energy of stress and concern and worry, and we're going to push that to your cortex, your frontal lobe, so that you could understand what's going on a lot better. And again, he's 14, so you can do this kind of stuff with a 14-year-old. So I want to give you kind of the basic premise, the conversation that I had with this 14-year-old, just something simple like that. And then what I'll do is I'll show you the first two exercises that I gave him to start to begin to unwind the body tensions, and then also to move, once that frees up, to move some of that energy towards the higher thinking portions, the developing part of his brain. So hope you're enjoying that, and we'll stay tuned. Okay, so here is what I first instructed him to do, and actually we'll put a link in below as to actual audio that you can go and do, and you can practice this, but I'm going to show you what we did and how we did it. So there's three prime areas of this parasympathetic nerves, these rest, relax, digest nerves in your system. There's obviously the stress nerves, but then there's rest, relax, and digest, called your parasympathetics. They have three major branches. They have a branch right through here. They have a branch right at the base where you're called your xiphoid process, where your rib cage joins your sternum, and then right at your belly button are three major branches of the parasympathetics, and that helps to inward connection. The parasympathetics help inward connection, help to rest, relax, and digest within the system. So it's a massive, a big important role in the healing process. So what we did was we had him put his hands on each of these three areas and just decide which one he felt had the most amount of movement and where he felt most connected. So we had him at what we call position 1 here, which is we had him breathe in the nose and out the mouth, and just evaluating that, taking a few breaths just to see which one feels, more connected. Then we went to this one here, and then with his eyes closed, breathing in the nose and out the mouth here to really get a feel for that and that movement and that rhythm. And then down at the belly button, we had him do the exact same thing for a couple of breaths. And after we did those three, then I said, which one seemed like it was the easiest, and then which one seemed like it was the most distressful, or the least connected, or the most rigid, or the most tight. And he chose this middle one as the best area for him, and this upper chest as the tightest one. So once we have that bit of information, I know that part of his embodiment of suffering is going to be at this area that's walled off. We call that like a SelfAnesthesia, where you wall off of an area of your body. And also coincidentally, that was the biggest area of his body on the backside, this torqued spine and these shoulder blades that were kind of lopsided. That was also a big disconnected area on the spine too. So they were kind of like mirrors of each other, that this area was disconnected for him. So what we did was we had him place his hands on this kind of power position for him, and we had him breathe in and out in the nose and out the mouth a few times, just kind of build up some momentum and power. And then what I did was I had him transfer his hands quickly over to this position here where he was disconnected. And I was just there for just a few short seconds. But what I had him do, if you remember from the beginning of the video, is I had him say, sometimes it feels like it's never going to end. So I had him say that. I said, sometimes it feels like it's never going to end. And he said, sometimes it feels like it's never going to end. And then he took a nice breath in. And all of a sudden, the chest started to expand more, and there started to become more room in there. And then we relaxed that and went back to a power position. And we did this a few more times and went back here and just said that one more time. Sometimes it feels like it's never, ever, ever going to end. And just kind of really ramping that up, because when something's going on and we're suffering, it just feels like it's never going to come to an end. And that is part of the suffering mind. But when we validate that experience, when we kind of hear ourselves saying that, it's incredible that it actually creates a moment of safety. And when we create that moment of safety, boom, the whole area can rise up and fall. And he began to get some of the range of movement back from an area that was walled off and distressed. So super important. So step one is kind of with the breath is finding these three areas and feeling these three areas to see which one feels tightest and which one feels most open and loose and flexible. And then working those back and forth and using some languaging of suffering. So for some people, they could feel really alone. So you might say, sometimes I feel really alone. And let it open up. Or sometimes it feels like nothing works. They've tried a million things. Sometimes it feels like nothing works. And you breathe into that space. Sometimes I feel powerless or helpless. That's another phrase that's really common that we use. And we just use it at this particular stage of healing to basically have the nervous system give itself a big hug, wrap itself in some comfort for a moment, and feel validated in a split second, and that opens the system up. So that was the first part of the process for him. And again, we have a link down below, so go check that audio out. I think it's 9 minutes long. The second thing that we did with him, once we started to open up this body and he became more nimble and flexible in there, and we had some tension and energy moving around a little bit, then we're going to go to that next exercise. And this exercise now involves the conscious mind, because the body's really the unconscious mind. We give him a conscious exercise, and what we want him to do is we want him to begin to value his experience. So the question I asked him is, and I sent him home with, I said, I need about 30 repetitions. I said, I need you to write down over the last 2 years of you having these challenges, what are some of the major things that you've learned along the way? And why was it important for you to learn those? So what did you learn? What have you learned along the way? And why was it important for you to learn those? And what we're doing is we're pulling energy, blood, glucose, oxygen to the cortex, away from the stress and anxiety centers and moving it to the cortex and the frontal lobe. So that initiates greater levels of healing, and that also helps to coordinate the autonomic nervous system, the stress and relax systems. It actually helps to balance that. So the more I know, the more he can find value in that experience, where he's learned, where he's grown, why it was important for him to learn these at these varying steps over the last 2 years. He will have a more balanced nervous system, which is going to balance out more of this reflex tension and bring more ease to his system. Both of those will promote massive healing if done decently well. So that's what we gave him to start. You could implement that for yourself, or if you have a teen at home or you have someone that is struggling with anxieties and stress and things, you could literally do the exact same thing, and you will begin to push the system in a direction of healing. So hopefully this is an empowering exercise, empowering video for you, and look forward to seeing you next time. And feel free to leave some comments. I'd love to hear from you. Hey guys, Dr. Steve here. If you hate this channel, leave a nasty comment below and don't subscribe. But if you do like this content, I'd love for you to be able to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a wonderful, inspiring comment below as to what you're learning. So we'll talk to you soon.